Let's move on to our second set of discussion on influencer marketing unplugged. Friends, influencer marketing has grown significantly and also has a substantial share of overall marketing, especially the digital marketing budget. To talk more about this, we have with us our esteemed panel of experts. So first of all, I would like to introduce Mr. Kapil Ohri, who is the Deputy General Manager and Head Digital Marketing, Dabur. We have with us Mr. Rahul Regulapati, Founder, Gallery 5. Ms. Maanvi, Editorial Lead, Vitamin Stree, and our session chair for today is Mr. Vaibhav Odhekar, Managing Director, AnyMind Group. So Vaibhav, stage is all yours to talk about influencer marketing unplugged.
So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome on board for this discussion on influencer marketing. And thanks for all the sort of great personalities we have here. A pretty well-rounded representation across the industry, and I think depth of experience today will help us have a pretty engaging and learning session for all of us. So I think without taking a lot of time in the start, maybe we can start with a quick introduction. So, Kapil, can we go with you first?
Yeah, so I'll go first. I'm working as a head of digital marketing at Dabur. And prior to that, I was with Ohri Lifestyle, where I was sort of a leading digital marketing for Now, which is their D2C platform of Ohri Lifestyle. And then I have also worked on clients like a GSK while I was on the agency side with Mindshare, worked with Sony, Philips, Kohler, British Airways, a lot of clients, so to say. And prior to that, I was with DIGIXX, where I was basically started my journey as a digital marketing blogger, then journalist, and then eventually was heading a function called DIGIXX Campus, which is the education sort of digital marketing education way. Yeah. However, yeah.
Thanks, Kapil. Rahul, can we go with you next?
Hi, Vaibhav. So I am the founder, CEO of Gallery 5. I had founded Gallery 5 in 2015, and we've been in this influencer marketing space since 2017. As a company, we've executed more than 700 campaigns. We've worked with more than 20,000 influencers to date. We offer technology solutions and services to help run and execute influencer marketing solutions at scale. Prior to founding Gallery 5, I used to be a management consultant with Booz & Company, spent a lot of time in Middle East and then in India, essentially working more in the technology domain. Otherwise, I have both in engineering. I've done my engineering at IIT Madras. I've done my MBA at Ahmedabad. So as a company, we've tried to bring in a lot more tech and management domain expertise, and we're trying to see how we can make a difference to the influencer marketing domain. Thanks, AdGully, for this initiative, and looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Rahul. Maanvi, can we have you?
Hi everyone, I'm Maanvi, my pronouns are she and her, and I'm the editorial lead at Vitamin Stree. Vitamin Stree is basically a content brand, an original content publisher that's seeking to sort of reshape the narrative around gender and identity. And we do that by publishing videos as well as content on Instagram that seeks to answer questions for the young women. So of course, as an original content publisher, we work both with brands and with influencers, sometimes on original content that we do, and sometimes on branded content as well. Personally, I have experience in journalism, but I've worked as a journalist for nearly 5 years. So in that sense, I come a little bit from that editorial perspective, which is what we are trying to bring in to Vitamin Stree as well, when we're sort of trying to very specifically look at what the young Indian woman wants. So really happy to be here and learn quite a bit from people from across the world.
Pretty interesting name, that vitamin Stree, Maanvi.
Yes, yes. It's vitamin Stree. It's almost a pun. I think every time I introduce the brand, I get a bit of like, what did you just say? But yeah, which I think it also sort of is the tone and we try to keep at the same time dispel into
Maybe we lost some bit of a sound from Maanvi. So thanks for the introduction, everyone. And myself, I am Vaibhav. I'm the co-founder for POKKT, which is a video advertising platform, as well as a managing director for Anymind Group. For the influencer marketing space, we have a product called AnyTag, which actually runs like Pan Asia, works with like tons of influencers as well as advertisers. And so we've been in this space for about last 3.5 years. And I think, like all of us, I am also personally very excited with how influencer marketing as a as a vertical has grown and like would continue to grow in the future. Sure, most of us come from a core digital marketing as a background. We've seen the days where spends and overall digital was something where it was being said, okay, take some money and let's try and experiment. But I think even for influencer marketing, that stage is long gone. And now there's serious interest across. Obviously influencer base has grown significantly. Where users are is where brands, agencies, platforms, and eventually marketing dollars flow. So I think all of us from that point of view, do look at influencer marketing as a definitely a big growth area. And with that sort of a focus, a lot of things do happen. So I think we can focus on some of that in our today's discussion. So jumping in straight into the conversation, I think Kapil, we value you as a pretty senior person, having experience across board from agencies to even on the creative side earlier to obviously now leading digital at a large brand. So I think first question to you, how do you look at influencer marketing? You still consider it to be sort of a niche, or do you think it's like almost there in terms of being mainstream?
So yes, definitely it is mainstream now, and mostly every brand that's there on digital, if it's not doing influencer marketing, not using influencers, I think that's hardly any case. In fact, I'll say that some of the brands are now being built only by influencers. So the situation has completely changed now. But I won't say that it will replace the paid advertising on digital. That will continue its journey because the paid, let's say the bigger video platforms, be it YouTube or Facebook, Instagram, the bigger reach builders, they'll continue because they have other capabilities of sharp targeting, which we'll definitely want. But I think from whether influencer marketing is can we do a mass marketing or a mass reach, or can we do a niche reach? I think both are achievable. Depends how or what tactics you use. And the most critical part, I think, what is the brand task in hand, and where is the brand in terms of its journey? If it's a established brand, if we take any oral care brand or toothpaste brand, these are all established brands in the market, right? Then the task might not be you might want to talk to those consumers where who just to sort the funnel or the lower funnel activities you want to do, and just for the Dabur, if being an Ayurvedic company, so the task could be talking about the ingredients of a brand, where the mass communication or the mass sort of a mediums like a TV, even I'll say YouTube or Facebook, when we run paid ads, we don't get much time because either we are running a 6-seconder or 20-second or 30-second or 1 minute. But I think that's where you need somebody as a credible voice whom the consumers might able to connect. That's where I think the role of influencers come into play. But on the other side, if the brand is hypothetically, if it's a baby care brand, you don't want to shout out and tell everybody, because hypothetically, let's say if you're selling diapers or if you're selling baby massage oil, you don't want to tell to everybody because that's a waste of money in that case. Then maybe working with mommy influencers in the parenting communities, maybe working in the social communities on Facebook or on digital. I think that's where you go and use influencers for niche marketing, because you want to talk as closer to the audience while telling your brand story and the product story. So I'll say that to sum it up, I think the role is a function of a brand task in hand, the sort of a life cycle of the brand. And what I have been noticing, and from the last 2.5 years, with the spike of D2C brands, they have started using influencers as celebs, like you use celebs, right? So they shoot with 4 to 5 celebs, or let's say a macro influencer or celeb influencers, and they promote the content actually, which is, and thankfully we have now SK guidelines in place. So even if you're promoting it, say when it's a paid promotion, and you put money to promote that content, that also works. So I think in the last 2-3 years, the space has evolved, I mean, to a very large extent. So yeah, so it could be a mass reach, it could be a niche reach. I mean, you just think of it, and you can leverage influencers in the way you want to use it. Yeah,
I think you brought two very interesting points also by the, in the sort of later part of your conversation. One around, sort of these D2C brands, or even if you have to extend that to the, whole e-commerce segment. And second, on the ASCII sort of regulations. I think we'll come to regulations in the, and definitely touch that point because it is interesting. But Rahul, if I have to bring the first point, and I believe you have, very close relationships with some large e-commerce partners in India. You've been working with them for fairly long. So, but not restricting it to e-commerce or D2C specifically, but yeah, by and large, there is a lot of sense towards, conversions, towards sales, and that's what most of the, commerce-led brands would look at. So, with that, just as a pointer, but also to an overall, mindset of how, a commerce platform would be thinking. So what do you, what has been your experience towards that? Is it very much conversion-led thing, or is it completely different than of what we are not aware? So, what's your thought?
Yeah, I think a very good question, and I think a lot depends. I think it depends on even if it's an e-commerce platform or a D2C brand. Usually, when they are starting a campaign, they have some goals. Sometimes it's not very explicit, but usually I think when we work with brands, we're trying to essentially figure out what is the primary goal of that particular campaign or that project, or whatever the budget has been assigned to, right? And I think the first important thing is to understand, what the objective is. Is it, are they trying to drive awareness? Are they trying to drive sales? Are they trying to drive engagement? Or are they trying to just maybe build a community around a particular, message, right? And I think therein lies some of the answers, whether they want to go, let's say, with some kind of mass media, whether it's TV, print, Facebook ads, etc., or do they want to look at influencer marketing out there? In general, we've seen, we've seen our role or influencer marketing to be a lot more effective when, a brand is trying to build something around, where they want to build a very loyal, engaged customer base itself. And maybe I'll take an example. We work with Myntra quite a bit, and they have been trying to build a lot of platform affinity, which means, kind of a lot of stickiness around their own e-commerce on their app itself, right? And they built the Myntra Studio, which is essentially a place where a lot of influencers come and publish shoppable content. Consumers can directly buy the content from inside the app. And in turn, over a period of time, they've been able to, drive a lot of influencer fan base from other social platforms, let's say Instagram, etc., into Myntra, and that's kind of helped in driving a lot more stickiness of the consumers inside the app itself. And this is a very classic case. This kind of a thing would not have been possible through any other form of media, any kind of ads, etc. This is something that influencers do well in terms of, trying to build a very, a loyal customer base around a certain proposition. And I think from our experience, the strength of influencer marketing comes in trying to, build loyalty between consumers and the brand over a long period of time. So, and I think and that, if that's the objective of the campaign, then it works well. And if that's not the objective, if the objective is just to maybe drive some instant sales or to just drive awareness, there are other channels that are probably much more effective itself. Generally, at a high level, a lot of media, a lot of other forms of media channels have focused a lot on content and commerce. I think what influencer marketing has added to the mix is a community angle. So I think it's now kind of brought the 3 C's together: content, commerce, and community. So I think when brands are thinking around all the 3 C's together, influencers and influencer marketing becomes a lot more pivotal or central part of their strategy itself.
Sure. Interesting point on the 3 C's, Rahul. And lastly, coming to you, Maanvi, I'm sorry, ideally it should have been first being the lady in the panel. So I missed on that. Sorry for that. And I'm sure, whether it has been digital days or influencer days, I think reaching out to females as a overall category, whether it's any form of commerce or product or shopping, I think the focus lies on how do we communicate with with women in general. I think your sort of portal is pretty unique and interesting name it has. You as a person have been there in this industry for fairly long. So bringing you onto the discussion, obviously your own first of all views on the topic, but even I think the creative aspect which you have, which is pretty visible in the name of your portal. How do you, and you have an experience which is also on the editorial side, certain things from an agency background as well as the creative side. So where does in all of this the creativity aspect lie? Is it tilted towards influencer? Is it how brands decide? You guys regulate something in the middle? But yeah, so maybe 2 questions, one overall on the topic as well as specific on creativity.
No, overall on the topic, I tend to agree with both Kapil and Rahul, where in our experience, we've seen brands go for influencer marketing where very clearly either they want to build brand awareness or reach an audience that they wouldn't usually get in maybe much more original or much more older ways of putting their word out there. And it's also, in fact, really useful for brands that are just building their awareness, that are just entering the market. So where if you already have a category, then influencer marketing, you might be coming to it for various other reasons. But if you're wanting to create a category itself, or at least speak to that very niche and specific kind of an audience, then influencer marketing is a good option. Like for instance, our audience is a lot of young women and queer folks. So we've worked with brands in the menstrual health space. We've worked with brands in the sexual health space, where in a lot of ways they know that the people that they are marketing to are these very niche specific people. And so a lot of their marketing is also in that sense about brand awareness. And of course, like Rahul said, about taking forward already a community. So building that community as well. As for the creativity aspect of it, I think in our experience, when we've worked with brands, As long as we know exactly what it is that they want to do, we have sort of the editorial and the creative freedom to come up for ways in which we want to put forth that message. Because at the end of the day, if you're approaching an influencer, they know their audience best. And especially, I think on Instagram, the way that we have seen the audiences evolve, if there is something, a piece of content that is a hard sell, people will automatically switch off. Like it's one of those things where even if you're scrolling on Instagram and if you see an influencer doing what actually feels like an ad, you'd be put off a little. So if you're coming to an influencer as well, you want that creativity, or that creativity is also what you want, how you want your brand to be conveyed. So at least in our experience, when a brand is approaching us, there are a couple of ideas that we pitch according to what it is that what's the task that they want, what their goals are. And then we say, hey, we know our audience the best, so we'd be open to taking sort of feedback, but in the way that we feel that this is how it should be communicated, that's how it's been. Also, I think we've just been lucky to work with brands that understand like basically that understand the Instagram space and know that this too much of a hard sell is probably going to be a turnoff.
Got that. But just the view of you, Kapil, on this creative thing, as a company, how involved do you guys get, or how sort of deeply do you monitor the creative process and the whole content coming out?
Right. No, so I think everybody has a guidelines, brand guidelines. So that goes first. Then yes, there is a bit of a creative intervention or a feedback process from the brand side as well. But we give from the idea perspective, we give freedom. Usually, give the freedom to influencers, so that because eventually it's gonna be a user generated content. So they have to first come back with the ideas how they want to do it, or in some cases also support with the ideas, and then influencers endorse that idea and activate that. So, but if you ask me, it's site, and 10% is more on the guidelines and the brand feedback that goes into it. So that it won't. At the end of the day, now it's a paid partnership.
Yeah.
So it should not go sort of in a way that the brand will suffer. So yeah.
And
yeah. So
follow on
that's how
question, Kapil, on, as you said, paid partnership, and you did mention the ASCII guidelines. So how are you looking at this whole sort of regulatory space? There is I am sure increasingly more and more of these will keep on happening or keep on coming. So what's your view as a brand?
No, so more than the view of the brand, I think especially for consumers, now it's pretty visible and transparent for them that it's been there's some bit of a partnership. It's a paid partnership.
I think we lost Kapil, or was it my connection? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think even I can hear him actually.
Yeah, we lost him for a bit.
But Rahul, if we take this same question to you, and how do you view the whole regulations which have come in, but even will continue to keep on coming in? So as both as a platform as well as an agency, what's your view?
I think it is good that regulations are coming into the industry. I think ASCII, they had come out with a set of guidelines in last year in June. I think it also shows that the industry is maturing. So it's it's a sign of it. And I think overall, the success of influencer marketing in the long run will also depend on how much the audience trusts influencers, how much do they trust influencer collaborations. So I think regulations around disclosures, the guidelines currently ask influencers to put out paid partnerships. guidelines around transparency, where so that influencers probably not exaggerating the brand claim. I think all of these will go a long way in building the trust of consumers over time. So I think it's good. I think the regulations are coming in. I think the only thing that to keep in mind, especially for the industry and also for the regulators, is that the industry is changing really fast. I think types of collaborations, types of content, platforms, everything's changing. And what's there 6 months back is not there right now. Different forms of content come out. Out there. A lot of influencer marketing that's happening outside of social media apps as well. A lot of today, if you look at a lot of e-commerce platforms, Myntra, Flipkart, Amazon, they all have in-app, sort of mini apps where influencers can publish content inside of it. There's live commerce that's getting really big out there. And a lot of times the brand influencer partnerships, at least some of the ones that we've been involved in, are not necessarily associated with a set of deliverables. It's sometimes long-term partnerships that people are doing it. Sometimes brands have stake in the influencers have stakes in the brands as well. So I think something like a simple paid partnership may not always work, or it may not address all these types of collaborations itself. So I think the regulatory bodies also probably need to be I think a lot more broad-minded, need to have a lot more consultations regularly, given how fast the industry is changing. Take a lot more practical approach. I think the spirit needs to be adhered to, which is is at the end of the day, is there enough disclosure for audiences? Is there enough transparency so that consumers are not being misled? How these disclosures are happening, how you can make it more transparent. I think those specific labels may change with the type of content, with the type of platform, and I think but I think that will change over a period of time. And so I think keeping the spirit in mind, but keeping an open mind, I think is going to help in ensuring that we are able to both address the consumer need, but also not make it very difficult for influencers to work with brands itself.
Correct. And Maanvi, what is your view on the other side? Do you think this is some form of a challenge even as a publishing? Have you thought of this as a challenge? If anytime you guys faced any?
No, I feel that the regulations are a good idea. Because what Rahul said is correct. At the end of the day, even either as a content publisher or as an influencer, what's important to you is your relationship with the audience. So the regulations that say that you must disclose that this is a paid partnership is in a way you being honest to the audience. And at least in our experience, we have seen that it's not one of those things where the audience dislikes you if you are doing some form of paid partnerships, if already there is an audience or already there is a relationship that is built. Another thing, I think it's an important protection as well, because I feel that there are sometimes, for instance, if you're partnering with a certain kind of brands or some brands where you're not fully sure about the kind of services that they're offering, even though you've done your background checks and background vets and everything, it is a form of protection for the influencer as well. So as far as the regulations are concerned, I definitely think it is a good idea. And I feel that it also fosters that kind of honesty and openness. And I feel if you have, as an influencer or a publisher, if you have enough of original content where you are saying what you're wanting to say and are continually building that audience, I feel that there should be no problem in you wanting to, or you having to disclose the fact that something that you're doing is a paid partnership or an endorsement.
Yeah, Vaibhav, just want to add one thing here. So I think so far we have regulations around disclosures and all, where in terms of so what happens when you go out and as a brand, when you go out and want to partner with influencers, maybe via an agency, usually you talk via an agency only. Now there's no clarity on the commercials. When I say commercials, so same influencer might be available at a different commercial point, sort of a arrangement with and versus a different agency. So maybe it sounds a bit idealistic here, but what is the rationale? An influencer with few lakh followers might be charging more versus who has more than 1 million followers. So how about the regulations here in terms of at least not taking away the commercial freedom from the creators, but there has to be some sort of a regulation so as to streamline this sort of a ask of and link it back to some sort of a performance, because eventually if a brand is paying or investing along with creators, so there's a and there's a regulations on top of it. So I think somewhere in the ecosystem we need to figure out some sort of a logic of these commercials, which, for example, when you deal with paid media, there's a logic of why right here it's all a bit fuzzy, like there's a, like in the celebs space as well. So maybe an idealistic ask, but I think somewhere it needs to be sorted going forward in the next few years, or maybe now. Yeah,
I think it's a very valid point, Kapil, and I personally, think it's too young an industry right now. As things have evolved. If we take all of us being in digital, how today, whether it's viewability, any other measurement in target, we've gone much deeper, not just on performance but every aspect of creativity. I think similarly some form of measurements will keep on evolving, some form of it may not be as simplistic as a a performance campaign, but I think as things evolve, and I would say it gets driven through some of the large guys like yourself, where you will have certain asks as a spender along with agency friends and other partners. I think there will be some form of streamlining overall. It might be too early to say exactly how it will be, and there will be premiums being charged by certain celebs or mini celebs, but I think right now it is sort of completely not there in terms of being a sort of an organized structure. I think that should and that will evolve, but maybe it will take time. I think it's too early. This is my view, but if Rahul wants to add something to this.
I think if I may just add, I think the challenge also in basically trying to streamline the commercials aspect of it. In terms of metrics and numbers, already we're seeing the evolution where brands are now coming across or asking for certain kinds of metrics to check performance. But in terms of streamlining of commercials, I think the challenge would be the diversity of creators and influencers. So apart from, of course, the very traditional, at least traditional in the influencer marketing market zones of fashion and beauty, now there are all kinds of influencers like food influencers, people that are only illustrators, so they have a very specific audience. So it might be that, say, for instance, we are basically operating the space where of sexual health and menstrual health. But if we have followers that are much lesser than someone who has a much better audience space, but because we're giving you that niche market, then how does that sort of factor in? Or say, for instance, if you are an e-commerce company working in the food market, there are only 3 or 4 big established food influencers, where the number of followers that they have are still going to be less than your big fashion beauty influencers. But because they're giving you that very specificity of the market, then how do you factor that in? I mean, one of the things I do think is going to happen for sure is the diversification of niches. Like if you're a general creator, I mean, of course, if the brand comes to you as a general creator, that's a different conversation. But at least we have increasingly seen brands that are operating in specific markets going to influencers that are basically leaders in that market, because they know that they have that initial filter of having that audience is already there.
I just want to add one point out here, and I think I partly agree with what Kapil has said in ensuring there's a lot more transparency. I think I think he touched upon the point that different influencers have different commercial points to different agencies. I think one thing that probably it's time is that across I think this should be more of an industry-led thing, but across agencies, across platforms, across different stakeholders, there needs to be a lot more transparency about what what is the what is the influencer charging for a certain thing, and of course keeping the personal, I mean, not disclosing anything, any PI related things, but I think a lot more transparency so that people know what the influencer is eventually getting paid at the end of the day. I think that will partially solve some of the issues that are there, because at least there's a trust that both brands and influencers will have, so that this is what the influencer is charging. After that, once transparency comes into play, I would hope that more market forces would automatically determine that prices come to a certain stable point, so there are not too many discrepancies. Again, why two different creators have two different price points? Like Maanvi said, it could be because of people might come with different diverse skill sets, diverse types of content itself, and sometimes a follower base or even an engagement rate, or no number might be able to quantify the differences between creators. But I think if market forces can automatically ensure that maybe certain categories of influencers are probably paid in a certain price band, I think that will generally help the market overall itself. I think but yeah, I guess it's because it's a very new industry, a lot of things are changing. I think there's a lot of general chaos, you could say, but hopefully I think in the years to come this will become a lot more structured than what it is today.
So just to add, even the AnyTag platform we have has something similar, not widely used in India, but Southeast Asia is going very well there, is this whole marketplace concept, where it purely brings in transparency to both the advertisers as well as so that's largely more focused towards micro nano influencers, and the play is just bring them on the same platform. But yeah, it all depends how things evolve. I'm sure there will be certain exceptions, but some form of standardization definitely will happen. And Kapil, apart from that, which is as you said, any other thing in terms of measurability or anything else you look at this when more monies are going in?
Yeah, so in terms of measurability, I think before that comes, what is critical will be thing to solve is the followers. So how many, in case any influencer has or creator has how many genuine followers and how many fake followers, so to say. And then if that gets sorted, then in terms of measurability, it will be, see, we usually get the metrics so far, either the engagement rate and the views that they get and the impressions that they, so that is fairly standard now. So that now to move it to the next level, I think like the brands either do a brand track or and check the conversion. Let's say hypothetically, if it's an e-commerce brand, it's easy to measure, because eventually if you put some sort of a money as a top up on influencers, and then you can figure out that what it led to. And the social commerce, anyways, everybody is pushing towards more of a hard sell, or I won't use the word hard sell, but an influenced selling, so to say, it's moving in that direction. But for brands where there's no e-commerce or there's no conversion being involved, can there be something like a brand track or something? So that I think that needs to be a bit more formalized, and the research agencies need to get into this space as well. So far they have successfully managed to sort the upper funnel play, or maybe not just the upper funnel, but the whole funnel play when we run ads on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or any other platform, or be it display ads and all. So similarly, what is the equivalent of, let's say, a brand lift study on the influencer side? And if that can come up, I think that will be an interesting thing to gauge and measure, and we'll be able to answer in sort of the impact of having, or delta of having, an influencer in the overall brand marketing campaign. So I think that's going to be very critical going forward. Yeah.
So Maanvi, what are your thoughts, both as a publisher as well as having a agency background to this particular thing, which is an equivalent of a BLS, or
Yeah.
especially non-commerce, non-sale brands, which is
Yeah.
not expecting sale right away.
No, I do think it does make sense. I mean, for instance, we've worked with brands where where they have been tracking conversion links, because again, these brands are working in the digital space, so they have a CTA that we are sort of then working in our campaigns. But my sense also is, I think it all comes back to what the brand is wanting from a brand marketing campaign at the end of the day. So if you are basically a company that's in a very, very niche market, where you are not even expecting sales, the primary thing that you're expecting is awareness. Like, for instance, Vitamin Stree does a lot of content around sexual health and women's pleasure. So we collaborated with this particular brand that works in that space. So for them, when they came to us, they said, because you guys, I mean, you have been talking about, say, for instance, orgasms or women's pleasure so much through your content, where a large part of what we do is try to destigmatize women's sexual health. They said, we want to sort of at least make it easy to talk about the product that we have. So then when we partnered with them, what they wanted in that sense was a little bit of brand awareness and a little bit of what I would say, or what I would consider the creation of a category where none really exists. Because again, sexual health in terms of trans space is a fairly very nascent space in India. So when they sort of partnered with us, they weren't looking for those kind of conversion clicks, because for them, the task or the goal was something completely different. But we have worked with brands where, say, for instance, the conversion rates has been of importance. So I think I understand from a brand's perspective as well, that if you are investing money, you do want to see those kind of metrics. So it would be, I think, a good move to have that part of an understanding both from the brand sides as well as from the influencer side as well. Also, I think just purely just a good sort of hygiene perspective also, so that you are not working with people who, for a fact, do not have that kind of an organic audience, what Kapil said in terms of paid followers as well. So I guess more transparency is the way to go, both from an influencer side and from a brand perspective.
Yeah, and just to add, Vaibhav here, I think one of the critical, when it comes to measurement, one of the critical thing that needs to be sorted is how many influencers do I need in a campaign? Even if I have to run an always on campaign, how do I justify that? That and what is a sort of a threshold followership that I need to have a delta impact on the brand journey or whatever particular campaign. So that's also somewhere I think is sitting that on the measurability side as well.
Yeah. Also, I think at the end of the day, just to add to what Kapil said, it's also about how smart you are with. So like, for instance, you don't need a lot of influencers if what you're trying to say is getting lost. But if you can really find those 3 or 4 people and are being smart about influencer marketing, then I think the impact for a brand also would be there. And also, of course, as content publishers and influencers, also we love to work with brands that sort of know what they want and they're not just sort of getting into the space for the sake of it.
True. I think being smart was the keyword I would say, but slightly different view. As in, I also personally believe that in the whole digital and also in influencer, the more we are able to track, we try and go down much deeper. May not always be the case. It's not always everything as ROI driven. I'm sure it's a wish list which a brand definitely wants, but maybe we should spare influencers sometimes, and keep it slightly broader. That's my personal view. So Rahul, your comments?
Yeah, I think Maanvi, Kapil touched upon I think the key things. I guess like you said, I think when you run a campaign, I mean, there are different types of campaigns. There's a brand awareness campaign. Sometimes campaigns are on performance marketing. Then nowadays, social commerce, live commerce, these are also coming up out there, right? So when you look at all these 3 different sort of campaign objectives. How the campaign needs to, I think a lot of time needs to be spent initially trying to figure out how the campaign itself needs to be designed. Like, Kapil said, how many influencers, what mix of influencers, because again, all of these three things, brand awareness, performance marketing, social commerce, will need very different types of influencers. Also the mix of influencers also will be very different itself. Which platforms that you want to run the campaigns on? Again, we track, as Gallery5, we track a lot of different metrics on different platforms, and all platforms have some limitations of it. I mean, Instagram is very different from YouTube, is very different from, today a lot of e-commerce platforms also have influencer apps within them, and a lot of new live streaming apps also have come into place. So again, depending on what your objective is, you'll have to choose before you even figure out who the influencers are, finding out what mix of influencers, what platforms, also what type of content also will go with it. I think if you initially zero down on that and spend more time trying to design what the campaign would look like, with that, I think what your eventual metrics will also come about out there. I mean, if you're running something on Instagram and you're expecting, let's say, commerce to come, just just by somebody putting out let's say a photo on Instagram, and you're expecting people to go to a store and buy the product, and you want to get a return on investment on that, maybe you will not. I mean, it's generally quite difficult itself, right? But if it's a live streaming app and people can probably buy directly from that live stream, you might see better results out there. So I think designing the campaign needs to be, I think both brands, agencies, all the relevant stakeholders need to spend some time trying to figure out what the campaign design should be, and that obviously will be linked to what you're eventually looking at. Are you, is it just trying to, drive awareness? Are you trying to build a community? Are you trying to drive commerce at the end of it? I think the inputs matter as much as the outputs, at the end of the day.
There's also content creation that brands are now getting into, where they want to work with influencers to build a bank of content for their brand. So there the goals are very, very different from wanting to see metrics, because there their focus is, as a particular brand, we want our content to be a certain way, but because you guys are already an expert at doing this, we would rather partner with you. So there the positioning and the awareness becomes more important.
Right. I think we are almost, completing our time. Just got that message. So I think one last topic, and maybe just like one thought from each of you. Now this is more specifically towards, as we see growth, any wish list of innovation, or maybe one innovation you think would really help us. So maybe Maanvi, we can start with you.
It's not so much an innovation, but I do think that what we are seeing right now is a diversification for the very definition of who a creator is. I mean, we are seeing different kinds of categories emerge that hadn't emerged, say, maybe 2 to 3 years ago, which means that then you have these very specific audiences where even if the influencer is what we'd call a micro influencer, but that the audience that is already has gone through 2 or 3 filters. So I do think that in terms of the future, it's not an innovation as such, but I do think that in terms of the future, those are developing that niche and then finding the brands and working with the brands that will benefit from that niche is probably where we're headed as far as influencer marketing is concerned, which I think is both going to be beneficial from a brand perspective as well as, of course, if you already have a loyal audience that comes to you for that one specific thing, it's a beneficial development for you as well.
Sure, I'm sure that will happen, Maanvi. It's a pretty valid point. Rahul, your thoughts?
I think an influencer is an influencer because of the community and the followers they have, and sadly today an influencer is defined by the number of followers they have. I think in terms of innovation, if there's a way in which followers could invest in the brand of the influencer, maybe they have a equity stake on it. I think that something directionally in that view would really be an innovation, so that it truly becomes like a community where influencer his or her own followers, they've kind of sort of built an enterprise together, and the followers having some kind of a stake on it. I think that's sort of an innovation that I think is going to be game changing in the years to come.
Right. Kapil, you are man with the dollars. So what you ask,
Right.
we'll all listen.
Right. So I think one innovation that can definitely come into influencer marketing. So mainly because we trust the sort of or the credibility of the creator in that particular subject or area. If we can translate that and multiply it with the brand. So what I'm trying to say that the co-created products with the influencers, hypothetically, if it's a fashion influencer, so a co-created label with a with that fashion influencer. If it's a health influencer, then could be a co-created brand or product with that. So the brand can basically tie up with the influencers, and we have seen this trend earlier in the FMCG space as well, where the special labels or limited editions used to come. But I think the same now, the influencer marketing, the way it has gone up, and we are at that cusp where we can sort of bring the products in the name of the influencers along with the big brands. So I think the co-creation with influencers, if you ask me to give the 3 words, co-creation with influencers, I think could be the innovation that going forward will, and that get easily, and it easily translated into social commerce, because that you can use social commerce and you're selling your own products as an influencer with the brand. Yeah.
No, I think that's very valid, Kapil. And just to give a perspective, in Thailand and Japan, that's precisely what we are doing as a platform. We do enable some form of D2C as well, but tie up with these mini celebs of sort, get a co-created, co-branded sort of a product out. We also do help in terms of even sourcing or procurement and development of product through a factory setup we have. I think as things grow in India, that's something we'll definitely love to bring in here. But I think overall on a panel, I think that's a good ask. And with commerce and D2C specifically going, this space will definitely see a marriage. So I think that's true. So I think thanks everyone for a lot of good thoughts and an engaging discussion. I think we did discuss stuff around the growth, things on the platforms itself, commerce, as well as the fundamental of lot more expectations coming in, lot more money is coming in, and this influencer marketing itself, which till some time back was pretty niche, I think now needs it's already crossed that threshold. So and maybe just my last wish is hopefully we'll have this sort of more panel in a face-to-face environment next time going. So hoping to see you all, and thank you for your time today.
Absolutely.
Thanks so
We'd
much.
love to.
Thanks. Lovely having a chat.
Thank you. Lovely having a chat, and hopefully we'll meet in person.
Thank you so much, all of you, for your thoughtful insights and vision you have shared with us. It's one such lovely conversation, guys.